friends. Today I've collected a number of different things related to AI and derivatives of AI, things like market conditions and podcasting and a bunch of different topics that I felt were interesting. I just want to talk through them. I've got a little bit less of a script, more of just thoughts that I wanted to unfurl. Before I go into those though, I wanted to say thank you to everybody that has followed/subscribed to the podcast. On Spotify and derivative platforms, we're getting about 100 or so plays or streams per episode. And on YouTube, that number is a little bit over 200. I want to give a shout out to Jeff, who reached out to me saying that he really wanted to hear about how I was using AI for creating the podcast, for writing code, or just in general, without the hype, without the marketing fluff and crap. So I'm going to get to that. Feel free to reach out, hit me up on LinkedIn. You can leave a comment directly on the podcast in both YouTube and the Spotify ecosystem. Let me know what you think, or if you have ideas. I love ideas. Last thing I wanted to let you know is that I've started creating longer form content on YouTube. There is a course now that goes into how to make an enterprise-like landing zone in AWS, because I needed to set that up for myself anyways, for my company. And really that's there to help learn Terraform, write code, build your applications. But I didn't want to do that with just a single AWS account. I wanted to build a multi-account architecture, do it right, make sure it's secure, control billing. There's badges, there's cartoons. I've tried to make it fun. And from there, I'm going to expand upon it and talk about the future of how I build, show you how I put software in there, start to build pipelines running in GitLab or GitHub or maybe both. But really, that's going to be my niche. So to begin this ramble, I'm going to talk about one of the tools that I use to make my content. It's a tool called Descript. I found it maybe midway through last year, and it's part of what inspired me to feel confident that I could leave my job and start to make content. Because in the past, the editing of things took so long, having to take waveforms and go through them and make cuts and all that kind of stuff. I started looking at Descript because what it does that I think is kind of magical is it takes all the words that I'm saying right now and transcribes them into kind of like a Google Doc. You can see all the words split by paragraphs, punctuation and whatnot. And that's actually how you edit the content, which I think is super cool. So if I delete a paragraph or words, or if I select a section of my content and tell it to make a scene out of it, it does all that. It just makes the editing process really easy. What was interesting to me is I thought this was a new company. I thought I found some new hot AI startup, but no, digging into PitchBook, I see the company was founded in 2017. They have 170 employees. They're on their Series C, and they've got 29 different investors. It's a great tool. It saves me a lot of time. They have an AI assistant there called Underlord because nobody wants an overlord, I suppose. And Underlord's nice. It will find, as I record this, I'm just sort of talking, so it'll help me find all my retakes when I goof, when I make a mistake or have filler words. It points those out, the ums and the ahs. I can remove those. It will do it automatically for me or just kind of point out where they are. And word gaps, there's a lot of neat functionality there, including the fact that I'm in this really echoey room. My home office is very wood floors and hard walls, and there's a lot of wood. And so it's a bit echoey. And the AI is sitting there helping me remove that. So I think that's pretty cool. To that end, I also want to bring up, they have an ethics statement where they talk about generative media. Really here, we're talking about AI voice, which I don't use AI voice, except for once I missaid the wrong word and it was a big oops and I didn't know how to edit it. I just had the AI say the one word correctly. I think that was in the World of Warcraft episode. There's actually a thing, train and authorize a speaker. So if you want to train your voice through the system, it's a lot like that movie Sneakers, where my voice is my passport.
My voice is my passport. Verify.
You have to give it the right sequence of words. And here you tell it that you want an artificial version of your voice and you read through a script. And then as you do that, it kind of unlocks the ability to train your voice into an AI. Additionally, I'll show you what it looks like for my Getting Started with AWS and Terraform YouTube course that I was talking about, that Essentials course, where I took a Google slide, and I'll have a link to that in the description. My slides are available on SlideShare. You can see the slide deck that I built. That was populated with a bunch of images from cartoon characters and awards and badges and things. Those are generated by Gemini. I liked being able to add these little quirky characters, and I wanted to experiment, which I think is one of the best things about this. I can try it out, and if everyone says, we hate your cartoon characters, they're garbage, be more serious, I can pivot, and it hasn't really cost me anything. I used to use Adobe, and I hated Adobe because it's like $600 a year or more. You have to get this cloud subscription. It crashes all the time. It's like putting a parasite on your computer that just sucks the life out of it. The last thing I want to say about Descript that I like is they have a really good status page that I've subscribed to. It's nice to be able to just go to the page. And I actually found it because I was having an issue with one of the tools. I don't remember what it was within Descript. And I opened a support case, and immediately the AI that responded to the support case said, hey, have you seen our status page? Probably should check there first to see if there's a problem. So I did, and there was a problem, exactly my problem. And then moments later, a person responded saying, yeah, we're actually having a problem. Here's our status page. It should be fixed very quickly. So I love that they had the little AI give me a suggestion because I didn't notice that. I'm dumb human, right? I have problem. And it helped. B, a person responded very quickly. Awesome. Descript, love that. And then C, the transparency. Being able to see when there's issues is fine. I'm not expecting 6 nines of availability, but I am expecting transparency and information from the company that I use. The other tool that I'm using that's AI heavy is a fork of VS Code called Cursor. The company behind Cursor is AnySphere, and it's an applied research lab working on automated coding. They have a recent announcement from January 16th on their Series B and raised $105 million in their Series B, which is a lot. I remember back in the Rubric days, I think our Series B was like 40-something million. So way to go, AnySphere. And that was with Thrive Capital, Andreessen Horowitz, Benchmark, and their existing seed and Series A investors. They say in the announcement that their approach is achieving real-world scale and that they're excited that Cursor is used by millions of programmers as the editor of choice. They've exceeded 100 million in ARR already in recurring revenue, which is kind of amazing. I bring this up because I think a major thing that people are getting wrong with AI coding is that you can put in just this extremely minimal effort on the front end and expect software to come out the other side. There is an art and a science to creating software. It's a little messy, right? There's effort to it. And non-developers seem to think that developers are just going to be replaced by AI entirely, which I don't really think so. I think it's going to be a hybrid of humans and AI working together, especially when we're talking about legacy software or existing software where you've got this large code base. It's a little harder than that. And that's also why I feel like I have this chip on my shoulder against engineering managers and a lot of product and project managers because most of them aren't very good. They just expect to put in this tiny amount of effort and get the maximum amount of output and kind of treat people as just, human processors. And they want to replace those processors with AI. And that's just not how it works. I bring this up because the AnySphere people have something similar on their anysphere.inc page. They talk about that they're a research lab, that kind of jazz. They say that this hybrid engineer will have an effortless control over the code base, iterate at the speed of judgment, kind of get the little marketing there, but it's the combination of AI and human ingenuity that will outsmart and out-engineer the best pure AI system. Agree. Do agree there. I think Arvid had some of the most interesting content. His arvid.xyz website had this as books and posts and things, but he had his principles page that I liked with his 8 principles, loosely defined and incomplete, which is all principles, right? They're never done. And some of them are, the first is deal with the mess. Agree. Let different things be different. Always use UUIDs or universal unique identifiers. Delay serialization and look at things. And then he goes a bit into more specific kind of issues and whatnot, but I like it. Arvid, if you ever listen, your jazz is delightful. I'm enjoying it. How am I using it? I'm using Cursor very lightly. I've actually kind of switched over back to GitHub Copilot here recently when writing the code, just because they have an agent mode now and I wanted to compare and contrast. But using Cursor was interesting because I think the main value proposition there is that it's not just an AI sitting on the side of your IDE. It's an AI that you can write sort of a PRD, like a product requirements document for it. You can tell Cursor what you're looking to do and the goals of that project. And then Cursor, using its agent mode, can write code and then lint it as this shadow mode where Electron kind of launches this shadow version of your code so the AI can sort of build its own feedback loop. It can suggest a code change to itself in this hidden window. It can then lint that and see, is it syntactically correct? Does the language server that you're using come back and say it looks good? And it goes through that process iteratively until the code is clean. That way you're not in that loop, right? You're getting code that's already gone through maybe 2, 3, 4 iterations and at least passes linting and language server checks. And then you can go from there. So it reduces hallucinations. It reduces code that just obviously won't compile or execute. And I think that's cool, but I also think everybody else is going down that path. So it's just kind of a fight for who's first. One thing I did find really interesting about Cursor is if you go to cursor.com/security, they have a whole infrastructure security section where they tell you if you have privacy mode enabled or disabled, which you get to choose, and by default privacy mode is enabled, what the different services that their backend uses will see. So what AWS will see, what Fireworks sees, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google Cloud Vertex API, TurboPuffer, etc. This was fascinating. It's really well written. It tells you where their servers are, such as AWS. It says most servers are in the US. Latency critical servers are also located in other regions, such as Tokyo for Asia and London for Europe. I don't see this kind of transparency a lot. And if you scroll down to kind of the less, things that don't really see code, like their internal tools, you can see they use Datadog and Databricks and Terraform from HashiCorp. I thought that was neat. Just being able to see what's in their stack. I wish everybody would publish what's in their stack. I think it would give us a better idea of where we want to work or not. Oh man, they're using some old dilapidated technology. Don't want to work there. I really like the transparency overall with Cursor. They even have a privacy mode guarantee. It guarantees that code data is not stored in plain text at our servers or by our subprocessors, and that about 50% of all Cursor users have privacy mode enabled, which is kind of interesting that 50% don't. I guess a lot of people just aren't really using something that sensitive. Speaking of hype, I'll bring up the Gartner Hype Cycle. I was talking to a colleague the other day who had never heard of that and only thought of Gartner as this kind of horrible enterprise that CIOs listen to and, just the typical engineering take on Gartner. And my advice was, yeah, you're not wrong, but there's also a lot more to the company. And I think the Hype Cycle is probably one of the better outputs that came from Gartner and something that I follow. That's where you have the technology trigger, the spark, the breakthrough, a demo, something happens to get people talking. ChatGPT is obviously kind of the trigger or one of the major ones here. And you have that, you're going up, woo, we're going up. The peak of inflated expectations comes along. Money's flowing, venture capital money's going. The media is just drooling and we're promising everything. AI is going to solve all of our problems. I think we're around there. Maybe we're still at somewhere between trigger and peak, but if we're not at peak, we're close, in my opinion. I don't think there's much more that we can squeeze from this. The models over on Hugging Face and other places are just fighting for inches of gain now. The giant gains seem to be diminished at this point. And then after that, we're going to hit the trough of disillusionment. Maybe the markets are already thinking that because reality hits, the technology is not delivering on all the promises that we thought it would or not hitting on the expectations that have been set. Some projects are failing. Early adopters are getting burned. It's just when we kind of open our eyes for a moment and realize, wait a minute, I was promised candy and all I got was a lump of coal. And the hype dies down a bit. So I don't think we're there yet, but that's coming. And then you come back up with the slope of enlightenment where it's like, okay, we got overpromised and then we've pivoted and now we're at this place where practical applications start emerging. And I do think there's a lot of practical applications today, but the rate of scale tells me that we're not really at the slope of enlightenment yet. And then you reach this plateau of productivity where, things start to taper off. It's less interesting. There's a new trigger somewhere else. That's the hype cycle in a nutshell. I'll be taking a break next week because I'll be at the Southern California Annual Linux Expo, the 22nd iteration of that. It's a conference I've been wanting to go to forever. And with my old work life. I just never had the time, never had the reason to go. And now I've got the time and I'm going. So I'll be there and I'll share some things that I learned at the event because I love Linux, but I'm not an expert and I want to become more of an expert. I mean, Linux is everything that I do. All the servers and code that I write is run on a Linux container somewhere. So I'll be there and then I'll come back with another episode when I get back. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure having you here. As always, feel free to leave a comment or review or whatever it is that, press whatever buttons are available on your platform. I always appreciate it. Let's talk again soon. Peace and love.